Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm speaking with director and writer Alexander Seltzer, and we're going to be talking about his latest short film called The Door. Hey Alex, how are you?
Hey Tiffany, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me and discuss your film. I actually missed it at Holly Shorts. I'm sorry about that, but I did get to
It's
watch
okay.
it, but I was able to watch it before I went. And I really enjoyed it. So I'm excited to have you on to be able to talk about it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and then so I just wanted to kind of jump right into it. Like, I mean, obviously the story is heavily centered around grief. So I don't know if this is kind of a silly question to ask, but like, what inspired you to write that?
No, it's not a silly question at all. I mean, for the longest time, I've been against, personally, I've been against the idea of having kids. I've been, that friend in the group who was like, I'm never getting married. I'm never going to have kids. I just want to live my life. And I have too many things I want to accomplish, et cetera, et cetera. But um, I kind of sat down, I think just over a year ago, and I was like, I really need to I felt I had to examine why I was thinking that way, and actually like get into it in myself, and I realized that a lot of it was coming from fear. And I tend to write and make movies about things that scare me. So I was like, well, I need to write something about this. This is going to be, at least for me, interesting. And so, yeah, the idea came from examining why I was scared. I realized to have children, and through that process, this story came out, and it led me to a question that I hope it comes across to audiences, or something that audiences leave thinking about, which is, does parenthood transcend morality? And I know I have a certain opinion on that question, but that's something I'm really excited to explore in this film, but also, hopefully down the road in a feature, if I'm allowed to make it, of this story or similar of the story. Because I think it's a rich topic to discuss, kind of an evergreen topic. Um, and yeah, I hope, yeah, by the end of the film, audiences are left questioning, whether they would do what, the main character ends up doing.
Yeah, and I like that you said you enjoy making things that scare you because I was going to ask you, was this always kind of planned to be a thriller? Because I feel like making it that way kind of accentuated the story a bit, where you could have just made it like super sad and not made it into a thriller. So I was kind of curious about that, like why you went in that direction.
Yeah, thinking about genre, I mean, I typically work in genre, whether it's horror or sci-fi. I like to mishmash it all together. I'm not thinking when I'm writing specifically, oh, it's X or it's Y, and it's only that. To me, they all have to live together. You need little bits of comedy, I think, in something that is sad, something that is, you need bits that are scary. So when you say the thriller elements, to me, that just, I think, I guess that comes from the inherent, like, initial kind of concept. It's not giving anything in ways to say there's a door that appears mysteriously in someone's house and you're like, what the hell is going on? I think if that happened to you, you'd be justifiably kind of concerned, whether it's your own sanity or whether the rules of physics are broken down. um, I think it all just came about from the writing and the story, to be honest with you, and it just kind of came from there.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And then when I was watching it, I was pleasantly surprised to see the actor Raymond because I grew up watching him on Degrassi, and so I was like,
Degrassi,
oh
yes.
yeah. I was like, oh, that's so cool that he's in this. And he's such a great actor too. So what
He's
was the
incredible. Sorry to cut you off, but Raymond is amazing. I
No,
hope I
he
get to
is.
work with him again. He's such a nice guy too.
Yeah, he's definitely great. So I was curious what the casting process was like and if you were heavily a part of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm always heavily involved in casting. I think that's, it's difficult to do. I've been lucky enough on the last couple of things I've done that I get to work with some really great casting directors up in Toronto. And so for Tanaya was someone we kind of latched onto pretty quickly, as Kara for the role, and she was out in Vancouver. I know she spends a bunch of time in LA, but she was, in between seasons, I think, of the show, and so we got her. And Raymond, as soon as I got a short list. Basically, for how it works is I get a short list from the casting director. Here are some names that we think you might want to look at, and I immediately kind of gravitated towards Raymond. I'd seen him in some things before. I hadn't seen him in Degrassi because I grew up, even though I am Canadian, I didn't grow up in Canada really. I grew up in England. I grew up in London. So I don't, maybe there was Degrassi, but I must have missed it. If
Yeah.
it was, I don't know if it was shown on the BBC. I'll put it like that. But they missed out clearly. But basically I forget what it was I saw him. I think I watched some clips of his work, and I watched some stuff he was in, and immediately I just drawn into what he could tell in a scene through his eyes without any dialogue. And I knew right then, I was like, perfect. He can do this.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then what would you say was the most challenging part about making this film? And then on the opposite end, what was the most exciting?
I think for me, the most challenging aspect beyond, making a short, you're often limited on resources and time. That kind of comes with the territory. But the most challenging element was how to pull off, a bit of a spoiler, but there's some sequences towards the end which involve some visual trickery, let's say, and there's a little bit of VFX, but surprisingly little, or I don't know, maybe not surprising to some people, but it was just working out the process of how to do it and make it actually like correct physically. And it's a lot of subtle things that I think maybe some viewers wouldn't even notice. For example, there's when they finally get through the door, there's something specific we had to do with wardrobe, and thankfully, my wardrobe designer was totally game, and she, made up two versions of Raymond's shirt so that they would actually match. And I'm talking in vagaries because I don't want to spoil anything, but like the way we did it, we ended up flipping the image in post, and so you had to like pre-flip certain props and wardrobe and things like that so that it would all make sense. And yeah, so figuring out the VFX of it all, making sure things lined up, because we didn't quite have the gear or the money to pull it off like how it should be done. So we had to kind of figure out the kind of more lo-fi approach to it. But thankfully I had Nigel, who was my VFX supervisor, who was great. First time working with him, and he was super gung-ho and like helped me do tests at home, and figure out kind of our angles. And then similarly, my DP Justin, he was indispensable in making sure that I wasn't super worried. I was like confident that we would figure it out between the three of us how to pull these things off so that it didn't feel weird, or hopefully you didn't notice anything. It just felt natural. And then the other question was, what was the best or the easiest?
Yeah, or the most exciting part
Most
about it?
exciting. That's a good question. Most exciting. I mean, to me, it's all exciting. To me, the exciting stuff is like when I get to play with the actors, and try different versions of a scene that I've written. Oftentimes it's like scripts take a while to like get made. This one is the fastest I've ever had a project get made. From like first draft of the script to final edit was like under a year, which is rare for me. So it was really just, it's for me, it was fun is sitting with the actors and getting to play with different emotions in the scene and how we could change it up from what I might have written a year or so ago, and reinvent it. And they bring themselves to the material as always, and makes it better. So that's what's exciting for me.
Yeah, and then I've always wondered, like with directors, I guess maybe it depends on the person, but when you're directing a shot, are you typically thinking about like how you're going to edit it, or are you more so just focused on getting the shot in the moment?
In the moment, I'm not necessarily thinking about how I'm going to edit it, simply because I've already had those thoughts ahead of time when I'm conceiving of the shots and when I'm writing the script. Because I came up as an editor. That was kind of, I started writing as a kid, but then in film, I basically started editing and then got into script writing and directing and things like that from there. So I always write right from the beginning. I'm writing my scripts with an eye to the edit. I'm thinking about how transitions are happening, how cameras are moving. And then that obviously that changes as you get into development and you bring on more people and crew, and they feed their ideas into your ideas, and you get this beautiful mixture of ideas. And then in the edit, everything goes out the window and you have to start from scratch, but you have a jumping off point. So I am thinking about it maybe not in the moment of the shot, but once we call cut, I'm like, okay, did it end on a frame I want? Did it, or do I have what I need within the shot? But usually, knock on wood, I've done my job ahead of time so that I can trust my earlier self that who thought
Right.
about these things, and then I can think more about making my day and making sure that the emotions feel real and that we're getting what we need.
And then for this short film, were you guys filming in sequence or were you guys kind of just filming?
No, we were not, and that's a thing with shorts. I mean, features too. Anything is like it's a privilege, it's a luxury to be able to shoot, I think, in sequence because of time. And because this story takes place a lot at night, and we didn't have the budget to do a lot of our night stuff how we might have preferred. Um, we had to do a lot of day for night stuff. So that necessitated really breaking the script apart, and with our first AD, sorry, just figuring out our schedule to what would actually make sense. Because we also had to balance our actor availabilities because we only had certain actors for certain days.
Okay. And then so how long in total did the shoot take?
We shot for 3 days.
Okay, that's quick.
Yeah, it was pretty ambitious. There's quite a lot of setups and different, even though it's one house, but there's quite a lot of movement around the house. Yeah, and then we had we had props in terms of like and effects, and we had the fake wall and the fake door and all of that. A couple of fake walls.
And because we were just talking about how, without, I guess, spoiling too much, that there is a mystery door that appears in the home, I was curious about you. Like, if that happened to you, do you think that you would try everything you could to open it?
If I was in Cara or Felix's situation, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
If I'm in my current situation, I'm booking a flight and I'm going straight
Yeah.
to Florida. And yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking too, but I know for some people they would or
Well,
and
that's
I
the
was also
thing.
yeah.
There needs to be a reason, right? Why someone wouldn't run away sensibly.
Right. Yeah. And then I was also thinking too, if you would open it, what would you hope would be on the other side of it?
Right now,
Yeah.
okay, this is going to sound depressing, but a job.
No, see, that's real though. That's very real.
Yeah, as a filmmaker, yeah, not much work out there at the moment. It's pretty rough out there, folks.
Yeah.
Hope
Yeah,
everyone's
seriously.
keeping good somehow.
Yeah. That's really real though. I respect it.
But no, what do I hope on the other side? It's a good question. Yeah, a job, or
An opportunity.
an opportunity, couple $1,000,000.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
People say money doesn't bring happiness, but it makes the stress a lot lighter, I think. No,
That's
just,
very true.
I don't know, a really good meal. That'd be cool.
Yeah. I
A
mean,
nice
I
bowl
don't
of
know if
ramen.
I'd wanna eat it though. I'd be kinda suspicious
Yeah,
about that.
true. Fair enough. Yeah, there's always going to be a, question mark.
Right. That's funny. And then did you have any plans for the short into making it to a feature or doing some type of sequel with it?
Yeah, I'm currently mid draft of the feature at the moment, and hopefully that can maybe one day see the light of day too. I think there's a lot more to explore in the story. Similar to the short, but different, but the same characters.
That's cool. I would love to see that. And so it's when you were writing it, were you writing it as a short or were you writing it thinking that you wanted this to be a feature?
When I first wrote it, that's a great question. When I first wrote it, I wrote it just as I had this idea, and then I wrote it very quickly. I think it was maybe 2-3 days to like a polished first draft. And then I like sent it to friends and my writing group and got a lot of feedback and revised and revised and revised. And then once we were going to production, I revised the hell out of it. I think it was originally like 16, 17 pages. We got it down to like 11 or something. And I always tend to I know the way I shoot and the stories I like to tell, I like to take time. So I knew in the edit it would end up being 15 or so. And I think I'm at 14. So anyways, I didn't know, to answer your question, I didn't think at the time of writing specifically, oh, I'm going to write something that I could then adapt. But as I was developing the story and as I had a finished short script and then a finished once, you know, we actually shot it, I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot more to unpack. Because it wasn't until like sitting with, you know, we're finished shooting it, and I'm sitting with it and thinking about that ending more and more and more, and I'm realizing what I actually want to explore, which is, I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, of the podcast, is, you know, does parenthood transcend morality? I think it's interesting. And, you know, I've talked to friends of mine who are parents and had differing answers. You know, some parents saying absolutely it doesn't, and then other people are saying, oh yeah, I would do anything for my kid. So I just think it's interesting. I think I don't think that's ever going to change. I think people have different relationships with their kids and their parents, so I think that's always going to bring a unique flavor to it. So it's just something that preoccupies me. And, you know, I know where I stand right now, but who knows, in 6 months, or once I'm hopefully done, finished making the feature, maybe I'll think differently on the subject.
Yeah, for sure. And then lastly, just to wrap this up, where can people follow you on social media, or do you have a website where people can kind of follow along with your projects?
So the best place to follow me is Instagram, Alex_Seltzer, SELTZER. Yeah.
Okay, you guys, make sure you follow him. And then are you kind of like updating people on the feature, or right now you're just kind of trying to create it?
Right now I'm just trying to create it, and get a script that I'm happy with. But, you know, films take a while, so I might have to like hit you up in like a couple of years and be like, hey Tiffany, remember me?
Yeah.
Feature's done.
Yeah, I'll be like,
But
oh
no,
yeah,
hopefully
you're the
sooner
guy with the
rather than later.
depressing answer.
Yeah.
Okay, I lied. I have one more question. So
Yeah.
I know a lot of times with creative people, it's really hard for them to know when something is like finished, or to stop, because you're constantly like editing and going back and revising. So how do you kind of know when your story is actually done, like when you're really through with it?
I mean, it's not done until it's out in film, in my opinion. Like now the short is done because it's out at festivals. And yeah, I could probably re-edit it before it comes out online, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but in terms of, you know, I have this problem with scripts all the time, and writing is rewriting, but at a certain point, it's just a feeling you get, whether it's, you know, you're tired of banging your head against the wall, or if you find yourself, you know, you change a word and then 10 minutes later you go back and change it back, and then you're like, okay, now I'm just fiddling and you know, twiddling my thumbs. I'm not actually like substantively changing anything. I think that's generally a sign for me to like let it be and then move on to something, because you can always come back. And I've gone back to scripts after a couple of years and been like, oh, okay, let me rewrite it again with fresher eyes. But something I thought was done, that, you know, hopefully you're getting better over time, and so you can come back and repolish it.
Yeah. And then so when you were watching, I'm assuming that when it screened at Holly Shorts, were you
Mm-hmm.
sitting there watching it? Were you
Yeah.
thinking like, oh, I would have done this differently, or I would have
Oh
gone back
yeah.
and yeah, yeah.
Constantly. I mean, I've always done that with my work, and I'm sure it'll always be the case, but I'm watching it being like, oh, I wish I did this, or didn't do this, or, you know, tighten that. But
I always feel like that's a little sad though when creatives kind of watch their stuff and they can never just like fully enjoy it because you're thinking those things.
I mean, there's been many times along the journey that I've enjoyed it. So, you know, I think it's okay. I mean, personally, I wouldn't trust a filmmaker who says, or who genuinely just watches their films and enjoys them. Cause I think that's, I don't, to me, that's strange. To me, that, because to me, I don't know, maybe it's just me being like the person I am. Like everything I do is riddled with self-doubt. Even so, it's hard for me to even take compliments. I'm trying to get better at it, but it is, for me, the enjoyment comes from just talking to people after the screening, like at Holly Shorts, having people come up to me, telling me what they thought about the film, what they enjoyed. Like even someone was telling me, you know, I think my film opened the block, and so these people were telling me that, you know, my film opened it, but they were still thinking about it and debating amongst themselves as the other shorts were playing. They were like discussing the implications, you know, through it, amongst each other. And so I was like, that's really cool.
That's what you want.
And
Yeah.
that's what I wanted. Yeah, that's what
Mhm.
I want. I want people to hopefully walk out having a little bit of a debate, a little discussion, like, oh, what do you think that happened there at the end? What do you think? What would you do? So that's really cool. And that to me is satisfying, you know, beyond certain edit moments not quite landing how I want, or me. And then again, I would probably make those changes and then regret them in another couple of months. So
Yeah, no, I think you're in the majority, and that you don't that most creative people are not going to watch and go, "Oh, this is perfect. Like I love this." You're always going to have we're always our worst critics, so.
yeah, I mean, and that's not to say I don't like the stuff I make. I think the more stuff I do, the more I am starting to like it. I think there's that, there's that gap that people talk about when it comes to creative creations. You work at it long enough, and so far I do see a bit of a progression in the work I've been doing, at least in the shorts, of like I'm getting closer to what I have up here. From the first to the most recent, I can see I'm getting a bit closer. There's still a gap, and it's figuring out how to close that gap for the next one
Mhm.
and the next one and the next one.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that though. Even some of the, I mean, I enjoy doing this all the time, but I mean, I could go back and watch some of my episodes and I like cringe at just the way I
Sure.
sound or the way I look, or
Mhm.
like, why did I say it that way? So I think we're all kind of like that.
Yeah, it's human for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. For sure. Well, thank you so much, Alex. I don't want to keep you on for too long. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk about your film. Again, I really enjoyed it, so congratulations on that. You're always welcome to come back. I love to hear more about the feature.
Thanks, Tiffany. It was super nice talking with you, and thanks for watching the
Yeah.
movie.
Thank you. Thank you.